Good evening. Welcome to the second edition of Thursdays with NAMI. My name is Peg Morrison. I'll be your host for the evening. I am the Director of Programs for NAMI North Carolina. That stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness of North Carolina. Thursdays with NAMI is our way of pushing back against the difficulty of the COVID-19 era. We cannot go out and socialize the way we used to do, the way we'd like to do. But we can create spaces where we can connect with friends and focus on mental wellness and have a laugh and have some serious heart-to-heart discussions as well. So that's what we're here to do tonight, and I'm so glad you could join us. All right, so tonight's theme is recovery talk, and we have some panelists that I'm very jazzed about introducing you to. They all have wonderful stories to tell. But first, a quick word for our sponsors. Please enjoy this high-tech logo that I'm showing you. Funding for Thursdays with NAMI comes in part from the North Carolina Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities and Substance Abuse Services through the Federal Community Mental Health Block Grant Services Fund. This comes from SAMHSA, also known as the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And I want to say the division has been a steady hand since the COVID-19 pandemic began, and we really do appreciate their guidance and their support. Thursdays with NAMI is being recorded, so if you have a friend who wasn't able to join us tonight, tell them, don't worry. You can see the full video and have almost as good an experience as participating. Will be on YouTube in a few days, so you just want to Google YouTube North Carolina Thursdays with NAMI, and you'll find our awesome segment there. So now I'll be introducing our panelists, and I'm very jazzed about them. Each of them has a way of being dynamic and fascinating in their own unique style. So first I'll start with Shawn Caldwell. Shawn Caldwell is a U.S. Marine Corps veteran and a peer support specialist with Atrium Health. His two areas of specialization include veterans and substance use disorder. He serves on the board of NAMI Lake Norman-Iredell, and he is the chair of the NAMI North Carolina Veteran Council. He's a graduate of Belmont Abbey College. So welcome, Shawn. Okay, and we've got a sound problem that we're going to resolve lickety-split here. Let's see. All right, hold on just a moment there, Shawn. I need you to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Okay, so if you want to say a quick hi, and then I'll move on to our next bio here. Uh-oh, I can't hear you again. All right, I'm going to go ahead and read the next bio, and Shawn is going to unmute himself. Let's see. Sounds like something good happened there. Okay. Brian Cardoza is the founder of two organizations, the Broken Knee Club and Survivor Nights. Both of those are in New Bern, North Carolina. Shawn, I will get with you in just a second. I see you shaking your head there. I'm sorry about that. So Brian Cardoza is the author of the book, The Unexpected Victim, and that book is currently up for an award that he will be telling you about a little later in the evening. Finally, our third panelist is Jackie Pilgrim. Jackie Pilgrim is a proud mom, advocate, international speaker, blogger, poet, artist, and entrepreneur. She serves on many boards and committees, including NAMI Durham and NAMI North Carolina's Peer Leadership Council. Jackie loves being a creative person, bringing creativity into all aspects of life, especially mental wellness. Greetings, panelists. How's everyone doing tonight?
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
Okay.
I'm doing great. It won't let me come up on video. It says you're blocking me.
Okay. I have clicked allow panelists to unmute themselves and allow panelists to start video. So you should be able to unmute yourself if you click on the bottom left of your monitor.
Yep.
Can you hear me now? We can now, but you had us locked out, Ms. Peg.
Okay.
I still can. It still says you can't start your video because the post has been stopped.
Brian Cardoza, ask to start video. Try again now. There we are. Okay. Well, there's a bright light emanating from you, and I think that represents your spirit, Brian. It could also be a light in the room.
It's the shaved head glare.
All right. Well, now that I've empowered the panelists to speak and be seen. I guess I'm a bit of a control freak more than I realized, so that took some doing. But now we're here. How's everyone doing tonight?
Doing great.
Doing well.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging in there with me. Let's start with the basics, and I'm going to let you all answer in any order that you would like. How are you taking care of yourself these days?
I'm gonna go for ladies first if that's okay, Jackie.
Sure, that's fine. Well, one of the things I'm doing that's been a real positive for me is just making sure that I get some exercise every day. Just taking time to myself. I live with my son who is disabled, so I have to provide a lot of his care. So being able to get a little time to myself and kind of getting away from everything and having that exercise time, that quiet time has been particularly helpful.
Good answers. That makes a difference for me too.
As for myself, I'm still currently working full time, so the days are kind of taking care of themselves, and being that I work at the hospital with veterans, and a lot of the people that I work with are from the indigent population. It's been busier than usual. So taking care of myself has just been being able to get to work and encouraging me, offering that hope.
Right.
Oh, and for me, I'm still working daily as an artist, and I still do pure.
I can't hear him.
Brian, can you get closer to your mic, please? He's not muted. Brian, we're having trouble hearing you. Can you hear me, Brian? Ruh-roh, moment of silence. Try saying something.
Hi.
Oh, that works. So you were saying that you're an artist. I think that's about when you skipped out. You're an active artist.
Yeah, so I'm an active artist, and I'm still selling paintings. Then I'm also a trauma-informed, trauma-trained peer support specialist, and state certified, all that kind of stuff. And then I still go around, and I still have people that I see to help give them support so that they don't go off the deep end in this time.
All right. Yeah, that all resonates with me. NAMI has been deemed an essential service, so I'm also working in the office. Most of us are remote here in the office in Raleigh, but some of us are allowed to come in, and that's been a real blessing for me because I definitely need structure in my day. That's a big part of me feeling sane and healthy, and just connecting with other people. It's important to me. So for y'all in this COVID-19 world, what is the same for you and what is different?
Shall I start again?
Please, Jackie. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Well, one of the things is work has remained the same. Actually, work has gotten a lot busier, to be honest. I find that I have more meetings, more calls, and more everything because it's just easier. We'll spend a lot less time getting ready to go someplace because all you have to do is sit down and just participate in the meeting. One of the things that I find very different is the fact that I'm a lot more relaxed. Believe it or not, this is almost like best case scenario for me, I guess, because I'm a bit of an introvert. So I'm able to expend more energy and be more productive rather than being exhausted all the time, getting ready to do something or having to go out or speak or something, which takes a lot out of me. So those are the two main things. I actually really enjoy this pace.
I've heard that this is a situation that is much better for introverts than extroverts. So yeah.
It is.
Yeah,
Very
go
much
ahead.
so.
Maybe I fall on the introvert then, because what's the same for me? Nothing is the same. It seems like everything has changed, but I do enjoy it. It allows me to have more time to what it makes me do is I have to plan things. I was a kind of fly by night, and I could do what I wanted to do because I'm a single guy and I stay by myself. So I can kind of come and go. When I fix one meal, everybody has been fed. But now, just being able to check on my aunt and my mother and my grandkids, everything now has to be planned out because it seems like the days are running together, and I have to get on other people's schedule because The stores only allow so many people, hours are
Right.
shorter, everything like that. So what's the same? Nothing is the same for me. And what's different, actually having to plan things or come up with a set way of doing each and everything just about that I do. Because even if you want to exercise, there's only certain limited times and places that I can go to do that.
Mhm. How about you, Brian? What's the same and what's different for you?
Brian is not fooling with us tonight.
No,
Brian,
it's, I'm
oh, go
sorry.
ahead. Sorry.
Everybody froze and I didn't hear anything. So,
Oh,
can I
what's
tell
the same
you?
for you and what's different?
So there's a lot of stuff that's different. For those that don't know me, I suffer from agoraphobia.
Oh gosh.
And so for me, this has been pretty horrendous because I've done a lot of work to be able to leave the house. I've done a lot of work to be able to have the ability to get out and not be freaked out about it. And so for me, when everybody's now like, no, you need to stay.
Front row. Brian, we can't hear you again. I think maybe there's an
And all this
inconsistent
kind of stuff.
internet connection.
Can you still hear me?
I can now again. So agoraphobia, and it took a lot of work for you to get out of the house, and now.
And now they're telling me to stay in the house, which is counterproductive to the steps that I had taken before. So it's really easy to fall back into that process of like, I'm just gonna stay home. So I have to work very, very, very hard to stop that mental process. So that aspect has been very difficult. The good aspect is I'm not like one of those people that goes out and gives people hugs. So for me, this social distancing, like I've been a social distancing champion for like 46 years. So for me, this is my time to shine. When people are like, "Oh, give me a hug," I'm like, nope. I'm like,
Yeah.
so I'm doing good.
Yeah, I think I remember that actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, Brian, I know in the bio I wrote that you were going to have a chance to talk about your book a little bit for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Tell us about your book and the award that you're up for.
So I'm up for under the Author Academy Awards.com for memoirs. I am up for best memoir. It's the story of I don't want to trigger anybody, so what I'm about to say might be triggering some people. So I apologize in advance. But get yourself ready to hear this. It's a story about how I was sold into sex trafficking when I was 6 till the time I was 9, and how I was severely physically and severely mentally abused from 6 to 12, and then severely mentally abused till 15. And it talks about my past of drug addiction and severe anxiety. And it talks about from one step to the other. And so I was just recently let know that I was nominated for this award, and it's been kind of floored. So I've been enjoying it, but at the same time terrified by it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. And I think if you Google The Unexpected Victim Academy Award book, you might be able to vote for Brian and help him win. Yeah. So that's a nice thing to do. So, and since we're giving plug time here, Shawn, Jackie, would you like to plug any of your creative projects in 2 or 3 minutes?
I can, yes. Actually, I have something coming up this coming Saturday. It's a mental health virtual interactive forum that we will have going all day. It'll be 3 different sessions. The morning session starts at 10 a.m. and goes until 11:15. The afternoon session is from 2 to 3:15, and then we have an evening session from 5 to 6:30. The first 2 sessions are primarily breathing, focusing on dealing with your stress, movement, and trying to keep up your immune system by being active. and lowering your stress. And then the third segment will be a live cooking show. And I'll have some delicious goodies. I won't talk about what's going to be cooked. And there's also a grocery list if some people want to run out if they can and cook along with us, as well as we'll have some tips on how to stretch some of the foods in your pantry. We'll also have a bonus segment on the morning talking about how to work from home if you're having any woes with that, and a work opportunity for people who might be looking for ways to supplement their incomes.
That's great. How
As for
exciting.
me, my mom gets on me. She says, Shawn, you cannot plug your book until you put it out. So I will say that I have one coming out, but before the end of the year. How about that?
Whoa.
Exciting.
Can I
Remember,
just
folks.
Can I just volunteer real something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Jackie,
Yes.
I spent 23 years as a chef, so if you need any help with any of the cooking stuff, please look up. I will be more than happy to help.
Let's talk, because I'll be doing some other projects, so I would love to have you come on. Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
I forgot Brian is a chef. Now, Shawn, going back to your book, I want everyone to remember you heard it first on Thursdays with NAMI. Okay? We had the scoop first.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. Do you have a title? Or can you tell us a little bit about it?
I can't tell you the title. It's called, I'm also a licensed barber, have been for 20 years. And the name of the book is Your Head, My Ears, and the Lord's Voice. They're the memoirs of a barber, a father, a Marine, and a bank robber. And I've done all those.
Wow.
Wow.
Can I get a signed copy? Thank you.
That is an impressive list. Interesting. Huh. All right. Well, I'm fascinated already.
Make you say waka waka.
Shawn's making fun of me because sometimes when something's funny, I'll say waka waka waka. All right. So we're going for a little comic relief here along with the recovery talk. So I think we're hitting it. Okay. So tell me, panelists, does this era remind you of anything from the past, either your past or in world history?
I would say I've heard a lot of, it doesn't remind me of anything of my past per se, but I've heard a lot of references to, I think the word escapes me now, the Depression era. And people having to learn how to ration things, having to rethink how you do, having to deal with, in some cases, a lot less income or no income, and dealing with that, how to deal with the stress. Being in a close quarters with your family, I think, is one of the biggest things that I've heard out of it that can be a little bit daunting. But that's usually what I hear when I hear people speak about it.
And I guess for me, Peg, to piggyback on what you and I kind of briefly talked about with each other, can't live through an era like this. I'm like Jackie, I can't remember a time, but I remember all the old sayings that my family has passed down to me, save, plan ahead, a rainy day is coming. All those things are coming to pass right now. So I can kind of see it in the faces of people. Look to the hills from your help. I'm not trying to preach, but look into a powerhouse than what we're dealing with each day in our lives. So.
Right.
And for me, actually, sometimes I sit back and I realize all the stuff I've been through. So for me, this isolation reminds me of some of my abuse, because I was, as a child of abuse, I couldn't leave the house. I was stuck at the house with my abusers. And not that I'm being abused now, but I'm still stuck at the house. And then when I was real young, I grew up in Alaska, and when Mount St. Helens erupted and the ash was going all over the place, we were mandatory in-house for, I want to say, like 2 or 3 days, because the ash was falling from Mount St. Helens. So to me, it's very reminiscent of that.
Wow. Wow, I'm learning all kinds of things about you all this evening. For me, that history question, it just struck me as you were talking about the Depression. My parents were born in 31 and 33, and they very much had this mentality of don't ever throw anything away. I mean, we would literally get yelled at. I mean, not in a huge way, but just like that was a no-no. You did not throw away leftovers. You did not throw away a piece of yarn. You did not throw away, the extra 2x4 after you were done with your project. Something always had value, and we had to keep everything. So
That's
that
true.
always stuck with me.
That's true.
All right. Good stuff here. I see a lot of good things going on in the chat box. While I'm thinking of it, I'm going to give a shout out to my colleague, Virginia Rodia. She is the helpline manager here at NAMI, North Carolina. If you saw the blue sign before, and it will be appearing after this webinar, the helpline number is listed there. It's also on our website. I might as well read it real quick. It is also 1-800-451-9682, 1-800-451-9682. Anyway, circling back, Virginia is on the chat box helping everybody out, answering questions, and she's just been really, really helpful and supportive. Also, Executive Director Gary Kreitz is an attendee, and he's available. I told him if I get stumped, I might call on him to talk. So thanks, Gary, for always being so supportive. Okay. Next question. Does anybody have a particular memory that gives you strength? What are you drawing hope and strength from today?
Well, like for me, like I said, this is almost best case scenario, but I wanted to say something to Shawn because one thing that he and I have in common that I've seen is the agoraphobia, which is something that I have dealt with for a very long time. And worked a lot out of that. And I still put into practice some of the earlier things. One of the things that I do is I always have an outfit laid out to wear. And I always try to put something on, even if it's just house clothes, but something that if I needed to go out of the house quickly, I don't have to stop and think about it. So seeing those things kind of reminds me of where I came from and where I am, because at one point in time, I mean, I couldn't even go to my own mailbox. I actually had to get my son's person who came and worked with him. She would actually have to get the mail for me. So now I make it a point to at least every couple of days go to the mailbox, which has been such a stretch for me, but at least it gives me in that same frame of mind of getting out the door and going to do something outside every couple of days. Because I can very easily fall into the track of I'm happy going to the grocery store once a month. That doesn't bother me. If I were a hermit on the side of a mountain, I would go to the grocery store twice a year and be happy. But so those are just some things, and just remembering the mantras that I say to myself to get out. I know it's very difficult, but I don't know. For me, it's working for me. So I hope that maybe in future conversations that we can help each other be strong in these times with that kind of thing. But what was the original question again? I'm sorry, I just wanted to say that to you, Shawn.
Yeah, thank you. That was beautiful. What memories do you draw on for strength?
I don't have to draw. I don't think I really have to draw from any particular memory. I'm just very thankful to be able to get up every day and to be productive. As long as I can be productive, then that keeps hope alive. It's that stagnant mind and sitting there and not having something to do, something to work towards, something to look forward to, that kind of sends me spiraling into depression. And another thing one memory I can say is not to slow down too fast, because if I slow down too fast, that also can send me into a depressive state. So if I need to wind down, I try to do that slowly in steps, and then bring myself back up in steps. But the main thing is to be able to stay creative and stay busy. That helps a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Jackie.
You're welcome.
And I know Jackie meant Brian, because I like to get out. That's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm a big hugger. I'll hug you in a heartbeat. So this is setting me back a little bit. Drawn from a memory of where I gained some strength from, Peg, just daily going into the hospital, seeing folks, and sometimes when I want to think something's not going my way, or this isn't what I planned, or because I write stuff down, I'm doing a better job of that. Then I think about all the people that I come in contact with on a daily basis that are having a struggle that's twice as difficult as mine, and it makes me humble myself right quick and fully understand that you know what, you better shut up and pick up yourself because you've got a home, you've got a car, you've got food, you're still working. So many times life itself is putting me in check. So that's where I'm getting my strength from. I just look around me and learn to be thankful for the things that are happening each day.
Yeah, I love that. I actually have a partner that I'm doing a gratitude list challenge with. Every day we text each other 5 things that we're grateful for.
That's all right.
So that's been lifting us up.
That is good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, not to sound like a nihilist, but you know, when you went through the first, 15 years of my life like I did, and people will always ask, like, how did you do this, or how did you do that, or how did you get through that? And I just look at them and I was like, well, to me, I didn't realize I was being abused. It was just Tuesday.
Right.
So I kind of just keep that same attitude now. It's I don't think anybody thinks they're brave or they're strong when they're going through it. They just think it's Tuesday, and it's just, we have to get through that point. It's when we look back on things and we start to realize what we did to survive. And
Right.
so for me, the rationale is really honestly just, I've been through worse. You know what I mean? Like, so, like, I'm stuck at home eating, chicken 3 days a week. I've had worse. I had to sleep in a car in the middle of winter in Alaska, so like, this is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it always helps to think of darker days. And I relate to Shawn a lot as well, because I've worked with people in different settings whose struggles were very steep. And I've been in times myself where my own struggles were much worse than they are now. Just having my mental health in check is an amazing gift. I could survive just about anything now. A bad day today is so much better than a bad day 20 years ago, and I'm just really super grateful for that. So, yeah. So this last question, I feel like we might have touched on it, but I'll throw it out there. If you want to answer this, that's fine. If you have something else you want to add, just take the ball and run with it. So clearly this is a scary time for lots of people, especially economically, but from your perspective, have there been silver linings?
For me, definitely. Like I said, the silver lining is just, I don't know, if there's a sense of having a peace of mind. I don't, and as long as I'm able to provide for myself and my son, nothing has skipped a beat with that. I'm thankful to have this kind of mindset, to be able to talk to people when I run into people that are struggling, just to be able to calm them and say, this too shall pass. This is a new norm. If there's anything to learn out of this, is how to be able to weather change, which is something that has been difficult for me in the past. But I think, in a sense, if I think about my past, and I didn't really think about it a lot with regard to this particular situation that we're in, but with all the times and all the concessions that I've had to make and all of the coping skills that I've developed throughout the abuse and everything else that I went through, this for me is almost like a day at the park, because comparatively speaking, this does not compare to what life was like growing up. You know what I'm saying? Growing up, I did not know from one day to the next, let alone one moment to the next, what was going to happen to me. In this, I may not know how long the pandemic is going to last or whatever, or how long we're going to have to be home. But I still, in my mind, every day I get up, I have a picture of what my day is going to be like. And that's a peaceful thing for me. So there's no uncertainty within that. The only uncertainty is I don't know when we'll be able to go out normally again, but for me, that's okay.
For me, Peg, I guess the silver lining, I was spoiled rotten growing up. I'm an only child, and my mom has me rotten, and my aunt didn't have any other kids, so I'm rotten again. So I'm twice rotten. But with that said and done, the silver lining that I see with this, my mother shared with me. We talk a lot, and she says this pandemic has made everybody kind of halt the pursuit of happiness. We were running the ball games, going out to eat every night. And then, so the silver lining has been that I've been able to spend time with Shawn. I've been able to spend time more. So even though not connecting personally hand to hand, but with my community, because I'm not running somewhere every night. I go home, I sit on the porch, you can kind of wait. I still stay in a pretty close-knit community, even though development is all around us. We have the original homes, and we can wave at each other. You can beep at the horn, or, kind of speak out. So the silver line has been able to slow things down. This pandemic has slowed me down. It has slowed my surroundings down, and it's just made me, for lack of a better term, even though I am spoiled and always once again going back to that humility. This pandemic for me has brought a sense of humility and a sense of enjoyment of the things that that are around me. My granddaddy used to always say, Shawn, if somebody says you're a horse, you don't have to pay them any attention. He said, but if Jackie come by and says you're a horse, and then Peg come by and says you're a horse, and both of them don't know you, men need to find yourself a bale of hay and a saddle. And so I realize now with this pandemic coming by, I did need to slow down. Yeah, it was much needed. Not all the loss that has happened to people, but I'm speaking personally in my life. It has let me recenter.
Mm-hmm.
That's my silver lining.
Right.
Hear me?
I can't hear you. Your image is frozen.
And so mine with Shawn is frozen too. All right, now I can see you, everybody.
Okay.
All right. Welcome back.
All right. So the silver lining for me, and not to sound global, but the fact that they can see the Himalayas again, or the fact that the canals of Venice are clear. The scope of pollution on this planet has changed drastically within these couple months, these couple weeks. To me, that's a huge global line. That's a huge global silver lining. For me, a personal silver lining. I have learned that when I get into lockdown, my art gets better. So, because I have really nothing else to work on, so okay. That works for me. And there's a question for me, Peg. I don't know if you want me to answer it now, or you want to just do that in a couple of minutes. But there's a question for me.
Let's hold on to that one. We're gonna do our video of the week, and then we'll do the Q&A part. And thank you. I forgot to say that. We always start with our interview questions, and then we have a fun video of the week, and then we'll do Q&A. So keep the questions coming, and we'll get to them shortly. Thank you, Brian. So do y'all have any words of wisdom for other people who are struggling right now, or anything about your own story that you would like to share?
I have a mantra that I keep in mind whenever I deal with people, because tensions are high, anxiety is high, people are rubbing each other the wrong way, whether they mean to or not. So my mantra is this: people are people. They do what they want to do, be it good or bad. They say what they want to say, be it truth or lie. We all have been given the power to choose. And I say that, the people part, to myself, when someone makes me angry or does something that rubs me wrong or hurts my feelings, it reminds me that that person is just as imperfect as I am. So whatever they're capable of doing, they're able to hurt my feelings. I could hurt someone's feelings, or I could be hurting someone else's feelings right now. And to be mindful of that and not take it so seriously, not take it to heart, and just find that peaceful point in forgiveness, and understand that we're all imperfect creatures and we all make mistakes. But on the same note, we all can do really amazing, wonderful things as well. It kind of helps me.
Thank you.
I guess my words of wisdom are, and I shared, Granddad, you said, decisions, Shawn, decisions. The decisions will determine the pathway of your life. Decisions are the choices you've made and have to live with throughout your life. And decisions will make way for the wellness or the lack of wellness within your life. So figure out what kind of decisions you're going to make, son.
I guess if Shawn's done, mine is.
No, I'm sorry.
No, I have several. One is this morning, like every morning I wake up and I say today's going to be better than yesterday. And I remind myself that even if it's like I didn't stub my toe this morning, or even if I did, then it's going to still be a better day than it was yesterday.
Mm.
And the number one thing I always try to remember is I'm not responsible to live up to other people's expectations of who I am. I'm only responsible to live up to my own expectations. And then I also try to think of when I'm going through really rough times, I try to remember and remind myself that the average lifespan in this country right now is 76 years. So if I hit 76 and we're in quarantine for 3 months, if I let those 3 months be greater than the possibility of 76 years of life, then that's some really terrible math. And so I try to keep things in perspective with stuff like that by saying, like, it's only 3 months, it's only 2 months. You know, I've been through worse and survived for much longer periods of time. And so perspective, it's going to be better today than it was tomorrow. And I'm not responsible to live up to other people's expectations of who they think I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I know who I'm going to call the next time I need words of wisdom. It's going to be all three of you.
Oh,
And
thank you.
yeah, and for myself, I think reminding myself that my brain has a negative bent, that's part of the illness I live with.
Mhm.
That is part of depression, and I have to offset that. I have to push back and be very conscious of the self-talk. So for me, meditation is helpful with that, and just taking a deep breath in the middle of the day, trying to be aware of what that inner critic is saying and realizing that's just part of me that's unhappy, that, you know, that's not a defining moment. That's just a thought that I'm going to let pass. And I noticed in the chat box, shifting gears a little bit to Shawn, someone made a comment, Shawn, please talk slower. They want to hear the horse story again because they didn't get it.
Two things. The horse story my granddad used to share with me. He says, Shawn, if someone says you're a horse and you know you're not, you don't have to pay that any attention. But if Peg comes by and she says that you're a horse and she doesn't know you, and Jackie comes by and says you're a horse and you don't know, and even if Brian comes through and follows up and says, hey, there's a horse, he said, you may want to find yourself a bale of hay and a saddle. Yeah. Listen, I got another thing. I just saw myself on the TV. This is green Perrier water. I said, that looks like a Heineken. Perrier water peach, okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Ed. All right.
Waka waka, good deal.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
Waka, waka, waka. And so for the young folks who have no idea what that was talking about, Google it. It's a funny show.
Yeah,
right.
it was a great show.
Okay.
A lot of good wisdom, too.
All right, so now we're going to pivot a little bit. We're going to wrap up the interview portion of this show. And I've already shouted out my awesome colleagues, Virginia, Gary, Michaela helped us with technology. So thanks to all of them. This is our moment of fun, a video of the week. And it's going to feature Roxy. She is our therapy beagle and office mascot here at NAMI, North Carolina. And she's got a quick word to share about this year's NAMI walk.
All right.
So hang tight just a minute there. Here comes Roxy Morrison. She's been training for the virtual NAMI Walk Your Way for NAMI, North Carolina. What she lacks in speed, she makes up for in grace, dignity, and wisdom. How you doing today, Roxy? Yeah, you are enjoying the beautiful smells. Could y'all hear that?
I heard it, but I couldn't see it. But I did hear it.
Nobody could see it?
Couldn't see
Should I
it.
try again or should we move on?
Sure, I would love to see Roxy.
All right, I'll try again.
Okay.
Did not see it. I am so sorry. We'll give it another try.
There's right.
Yeah, there she is.
All right. And play. For the virtual NAMI Walk Your Way for NAMI, North Carolina. What she lacks in speed, she makes up for in grace, dignity, and wisdom. How you doing today, Roxy? Yeah, you are enjoying the beautiful smells.
She is
All
so
right.
cute.
So that's my girl. That's Roxy Morrison. She's in the office every day with us and gives everyone a nice smile. Okay. So now we are going to try to answer all the questions we can. Um, Panelists and I will do our very best to hit all of them. If you're not sure how to ask a question, if you're newer to Zoom, you want to start at the bottom of your screen. On my monitor, it's just a little left of center. It might look different on yours. It depends on your platform or device. There should be a small icon that says Q&A. You click on that. That's your first step. And then that will open the Q&A window. You just type your question and it will come to me and the other panelists. We're going to answer as many questions as we can by 8:30. I can't pinky swear that we'll hit all of them, but we're going to try. So we've got two lined up already. And this one is Brian and possibly Shawn. How did you get started writing your book? Once you got your ideas on paper, what did you do from there?
I'll let Shawn go first if he would like.
Well, I can jump in there, Brian, especially since I haven't finished. I kept, what really helped me was my Aunt Betty. She was saying, when something comes to mind, you just jot it down, because I didn't have a format of how to do it. And so what worked for me, or what is still working for me, is when something comes to mind, put it in, and once I have it in, then I go back into the different placements of what was the timeline that it fit in for me. And then the other part that I find is somewhat difficult is at first you have no publishers, and then sometimes when I'm running into it, it seems like a good idea or something that could sell into something else. Now everybody wants a piece of the pie. I don't know if that helps you.
Thank
Brian?
you.
And for me, I think the greatest thing for me was my editor. It's a little bit more, it's along the same lines that what Shawn's aunt told him, but she was a little bit more terse with it. She just told me to effing write. And I was like, oh, okay, I can effing write. And so I would start to write, and she was like, just send it to me. And so I would send it to her, and then she would break it up, and then she would ask questions about what I had written. And that helps me expand, because, when you're writing a memoir and you're putting it out on paper, sometimes in your head you finish complete sentences in your head and you haven't even finished typing you know what I mean? So you can get stuck doing that, and a good editor will catch that and then be like, I think you stopped mid-sentence here and finished it in your head. Or they will ask a critical question for you to expand upon a subject, and it may be a very hard subject for you to expand on. One of the things I talk about at colleges is, if you're going to try to do this, you need to be in a headspace to where you're ready for people to ask you questions about things you never wanted to have anybody else know. So it was really hard for me because, with, toxic masculinity and all the machismo and all the crap that goes around, to admit that I was a rape survivor of 3 years was pretty difficult to do in its first place. But a friend of mine bought me the book, A Child Called It. And I realized, if he could do it, so could I. So I unfortunately, I blew out my knee right before I sat down to do my book. And it actually ended up being a good thing, because I couldn't walk on it. I had to have surgery. So it was like, I have time to write. So I wrote the book in 4 months.
Wow.
The editing process back and forth took about a year. And during that time, it was probably 1 year later where I fully recovered.
Brian, we're having trouble hearing you again. Gotta love these internet challenges. Technology is such an awesome thing, until it's not, I guess.
Did you guys lose everything I just said?
We heard up to a certain point. You were talking about an editor having you revisit things and how difficult that can be. Um,
And I lost him on about when he was talking about 4 months, because I think that's impressive to get all that down in to be able to do that, Brian. My hat's off to you.
Thank you. It's a very short book, but it's so it's the fact that when somebody asks you a question about something you didn't want to relive,
Mhm.
and they're asking you in a way that you have to relive it to write about it, that could be pretty troubling, and that can be very triggering on a daily basis. So you have to realize that they're not asking you that to pry and needle you. They're asking that because for the person who doesn't know you from Adam,
Mhm.
you need to get them involved in the story so they turn the next page.
Yeah.
And that's hard to accept, because you're just like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. And then they're like, no, but what happened? And you're just like, oh, that's great. So my mental health really suffered for about a year after writing it.
Mhm.
But the beautiful part about it was I'll never forget. I got a message on Facebook, and it was from this guy in Canada, and he wrote, bought your book, read it in a day. I hope you will read my book because I saw how you did it and I can too. And I was on cloud 9 for like 3 weeks. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's why I did it. That one singular person is why I did that. And it was brutal, it was rough, but I'll be damned if it wasn't worth it.
that's amazing.
Mhm.
Brian, I want to thank you for your courage. That's one of the reasons I was so jazzed about you joining the group tonight, is that you have a powerful message and you share it with candor and strength. So that's a wonderful
Same with
thing.
Shawn and Jackie. Same with Shawn and Jackie.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you. I mean,
I am
it's been a
grateful.
pleasure.
I am grateful to all of you. More than you know, I'm really jazzed about this group, and I feel like I know I can count on you for insight and for humor and all that good stuff. Next question is kind of heavy. An important question: how do I get out of addictive behaviors? I know I could say a little bit about that. I was in AA for a number of years. For me, again, it goes to that inner critic. It goes to that thought process that leaves me feeling empty and depleted. So a mantra, as Jackie had mentioned, for me, it would be a string of words that were uplifting and that would kind of neutralize the negative self-talk. An example would be gentle forgiveness, mercy, and grace. I would just say that to myself again and again and again, gentle forgiveness, mercy, and grace, because I'm so hard on myself sometimes. Or the serenity prayer. I understand that God isn't a concept or philosophy that works for everyone. It does for me much of the time. The serenity prayer being, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Any other takers?
I can jump in on this one. All right. So a couple different things. One of the things, when I hear addictive behaviors, I hear the addiction, And first thing I come to these facilitations, we have to recognize addiction in itself is a disease. So with her addictive behavior, whatever that may be, it doesn't have to necessarily be a substance or alcohol, or it could be a relationship or that behavior that's unhealthy. So for myself, when I find addictive behaviors or addiction in general, I stop saying to myself what's good or what's bad, what's right or what's wrong. I say what's healthy and unhealthy. And if I plug healthy in, I can say, well, I can go over to Peg's house. And I used to think Peg was a bad person. I just say, is Peg really healthy for me? Is this food healthy for me? Am I spending my money in a healthy way? So when you plug that into that behavior you're doing, ask yourself first and foremost, is it of a healthy nature? And when you do that, that'll take away some of that shame, guilt, or whatever you're feeling is driving you to question yourself of in an unhealthy nature. And then after I do that, I like for you guys, if you get a chance, it's a little video that I show or we watch sometimes at the hospital, and his name is Nuggets. I don't know if anybody ever seen that. It's called Addiction and Nuggets. You plug it in on YouTube, and he's a Kiwi, He's not really supposed to be able to fly. And you'll see him when he comes on. It's only about a minute long, and you'll see this little gold ball on the ground. And he first walks past it, and that gold ball is whatever that behavior, that addictive behavior, the addiction or whatever it is. But watch that video about 3 or 4 times, and each time make notes for yourself what changed with what Nuggets was going through, and that kind of in itself, in a visual standpoint, helped me, and hopefully it'll help you also understand what do I need to change. And sometimes the reactions of the things that happened to him were worse, and as the screen got darker, he was losing opportunities, people. This was costing me. So just watch that and see how it works for you. But that's what I have for addictive behaviors and addiction and stuff.
So it's
Recognize first
Nuggets
and
on
foremost.
YouTube.
Yeah, Nuggets on, and recognize that addiction in itself is a disease.
Yeah. For me, my addiction was to food. Binging and starving is actually what I did. I starved during the day and I binged at night. And I didn't realize it for many years. And when I did realize it, I was very sick and wanted to do something about it, but it was extremely difficult to stop the behavior. It was extremely difficult to see myself as worthy of doing anything good for myself. So I kind of systematically broke it down into steps that were doable for me. And then step number 1 was figure out that I've got to figure out a way how to love myself. Because once I love myself, then I'm going to want to do better by myself. So one of my other mantras, and I don't remember it word for word, but I put it on a bathroom mirror and I would tell myself every day, I'm working to love you, even though it's difficult, or I'm committed to loving you more and working on it, even though it's difficult, more or less in the phrase. And I would say this thing to myself every day. I look in the mirror and say that to myself. And it took a long time, but I remember a moment came when I actually started feeling, I felt a little tingle in my heart when I said it, and I was like, wow. Because see, I didn't grow up with love. I didn't know what love felt like. I knew what it was to give love, but I didn't know what it was to receive love, not even from myself. So once I was able to feel that little tingle and actually be able to appreciate having love for myself and could start to see a trace of why I'm worthy of love, then I had to go to that next phase, and that was, how do I maintain this relationship with myself? And one of the things I came up with is typically when we are committed to something or someone, we keep trying. Even if we mess up and we fail or we fall down, we get up because we are committed to being with that person or doing that thing. So I had to actually make a commitment to myself, to be in a loving relationship with myself so that I could do kind things for myself on a long-term basis. Everything else kind of falls after that. Once I set and had that commitment, even though I've had some falls and whatnot, I didn't fall and turn and walk away and quit for years on end. I might have quit for a couple months, but then because I love myself and I wanted to do something for myself and I wanted to be healthier and I deserved to be healthier by God, I got up and I tried it again. And I kept trying, I kept trying. I used to weigh well over 400 pounds. I remember getting on the scale and seeing 389 pounds and thinking, yes, I've lost weight, and now I'm in my 200s. And it didn't happen overnight. It's taken years for me to do that. And I'm still working on the commitment, and I still work on eating healthy. And I have to say, get up, don't get so busy. You do for other people, I do for my son, I have to do his care, but take a moment to make that salad for yourself, and not just make it, but sit down, enjoy it. Think about how the food tastes, how it feels, and how good it's going to be for your body. And I think about this little thing I used to tell my son, who did not want to eat anything green when he was little. And I would tell him the story about the little broccoli that wanted to grow up and be part of the little boy's body. And he wanted to play kickball, and how if it ended up in the trash, that was kind of like purgatory for the food. And after that long story and making myself cry 3 times, my son finally gave in and ate broccoli. So, if I took the time and was committed to teaching my son to eat healthier foods, surely I could take time to help myself.
Wow, that is powerful. You're getting a lot of kudos in the chat box.
Oh, thank you, everybody. I'm gonna take a little time to read this.
I feel like for women in particular, what you said is so important that so many of us just don't learn to make space for ourselves, and we don't learn to put ourselves first.
Right.
Um, Honestly, I found it hard to say that just now. We don't learn to put ourselves first. It's just difficult. Um, yeah, we just don't give ourselves that weight in our own world. So, Brian, I know you've got some things to say too.
You know me, girl. So for addiction for me, and let me just specify this. This works for me. It's probably not going to work for everybody, but this works specifically for me. I've been clean now since 1997. I have been sober since 2011. I have, and I'm just like with Jackie. I have been on a weight loss for the last 2 years. I can attest to some of it. Seeing me every 3 months. I've lost 250 pounds in the last 2 years, and part of that addiction. Thank you, Jackie. Part of the addiction for me, and the thing that help me conquer some of these things. Because first off, it was the realization that I'm always going to be a drug addict and an alcoholic. This is what works for me. So I'm not saying this for everybody. Is that realization that that's always going to be there. I'm always going to be a food addict because I realized that when I was being, trigger warning, when I was being raped, before I realized what booze and drugs were, I realized that pizza and Twinkies could make me feel better.
Mm.
So I started an unhealthy affair with food from 6 years old. And so I've had this addiction my entire life, and to realize just because I don't use it doesn't mean that the addiction is still not active, because at any point in time, I could go get a Snickers bar and a bottle of rum and just be happy. But I have to confront something. So when I'm starting to feel a relapse coming on, or if I'm starting to feel like I want to use again, I have to sit down and really be like, okay, Brian, what in the hell are you trying to run from now? And let's try to actually focus in on what we're feeling, why we're feeling it, and what we can do to come out the other side. One of the things I do with peer support when I'm talking with another survivor, another drug addict or whatever, is I help them put together a plan for when they do relapse. And the reason I do that is because relapse is part of recovery. Relapse is part of being a human. And what can happen is if you relapse and you don't have a plan.
Oh, there it goes. That darn sound issue. So I'm going to take a guess that if you relapse and don't have a plan, you're much more likely to stay off the wagon, as they say.
So when you do relapse, you don't think of yourself as a failure. You realize that was part of the plan, and now we just step to the next part of your plan. So for me, it was that self-realization is that when I want to use, or when I want to get drunk, or when I want to eat bad, I'm really trying to mask something going on inside, and don't try to mask it, confront it. And that has helped me a lot. And again, please, that's helped me a lot. So I hope it helps somebody, but I can only really speak what I did for me on my addiction.
Right. Yeah, those are some really great points. And I like just having a blend of perspectives and everyone has something interesting to say. Next question is, what is the name of Shawn's book?
Your Head, My Ears, and the Lord's Voice, the memoirs of a father, a barber, a Marine, and a bank robber.
I'm going to ask you to say that again.
Your Head, because when I'm in the barbershop, I'm cutting hair and people tell me what's on their mind. Your head, my ears, I'm listening. Your head, my ears, and the Lord's voice, he's always talking to me. And then I go back to the memoirs. That is, your head, my ears, the Lord's voice, memoirs of a father, which I am, a barber, which I am, a Marine, which I'll always be, and a bank robber is something I used to do.
All right. I'm glad you had a career change because I have a feeling you're helping a lot more people.
Hey, so I have to say this, guys. You know, Waka Waka. So a friend of mine called me yesterday, and we grew up together. He said, "Hey, Shawn, my stimulus check came yesterday. First time ever I thought about it. We can't do it, but I can put on a mask and go in and say, 'Give me my money.'" I said, "You so stupid, right?"
Let's not do that.
Oh
but
my
that's
gosh.
hilarious.
That is.
But no.
I told him I don't do that no more. I don't do that no more. I don't live like that. Boy, I tell you.
Oh, right on. That is awesome. All right, so back to Brian. How did you find a publisher in the first place?
So I didn't. I put it out to quite a few publishers. I even got one publisher to write me back saying that the book wasn't sexy enough. And so what I ended up doing is I ended up framing. Yeah, I said the same thing, Jack. I ended up framing the first rejection letter, and I still have it. And I published because to me it was something that still needed to be said. So I found a decent self-publisher, and I went through that process. But here's the thing. You have to be very, very, very comfortable with hearing no, and you need to do a...
Ruh-roh. Those darn sound gremlins are really getting on my nerves.
Somebody fed them after midnight.
I know, right? So you need to get comfortable hearing the word no.
Yeah, and you want to send it to somebody who's published those kinds of things before. And there is a book. I cannot remember the name of the book. I'll send it to Peg later when I remember the name when I'm like asleep tonight. But there's a book with all the publishers in the country and what genre they publish in. And that would be something very helpful for you to find a publisher with.
Okay. All right. And to Jackie, how can someone attend your virtual event?
Very easily. I posted the link, and I'll be happy. I think I can put it in here again for you. Yeah, I can. Just visit the link, go to the page, and just scroll down and click on register, and put in some real simple basic information, and just click on how many sessions. You can click on one, or you can click on all three.
All right. That was a quick and dirty one, so that's good. Next question. I know, Brian, you said it took 4 months to write your book. Shawn, talk about how long it's taken you to write your book.
Oh, God. I have been writing this book. If my mother hears this, she's going to get me. I have been writing this book for 3 years, easily. 3 years, easily. I've been living it my entire life because I've been cutting hair 20 years. But easily, I've been writing this book 3 years. So I've given myself to the close of this year to have it done. So put them, no ifs, ands, or buts.
That's great. Sounds very reasonable as a time frame to write a book.
I think so. I mean, I've been trying to write on and off for years. I blog, but I haven't been able to get the book out. But I do have published one audio poem that came from a heavy memory that hit me like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I got up and I wrote the poem, and I used to perform it to friends on the phone when one of my friends who was into theatrics said, you know, you really should record that. And I actually bought studio time, hired 2 actors, and it didn't work out because they couldn't really capture, one of them couldn't really capture the most evil person in there, which was representing my father at the time. So I came home and I downloaded Audacity on my home computer, and I grabbed my little microphone and I recorded all the voices, and I did everything. It's like less than 2 minutes, but when I listened to it, listening to it actually helped me to realize that what I went through was real. Yeah, because for me, like Brian was saying earlier, you didn't think about the abuse when you were going through the abuse. It was just another day. It was like you try to avoid getting hit, or you don't know if you're going to be raped, or whatever else occurred. And life was survival. So it really wasn't until after my parents died and I started therapy because I felt free enough to be able to actually say what happened out loud, without damaging them, because everything was like, I didn't want to damage my parents. I was already an embarrassment, so I didn't want to make things worse. And it wasn't until one of the therapists reacted she had a very bad reaction to what I was telling her. And that's when I realized that what I had gone through was really bad.
Can I jump in real quick, Jeff?
Yeah.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
So I know mine only took 4 months, but there was 2 things that I kept running through my head. One time somebody told me, after hearing me say my story verbally, they said some of the greatest stories in the country are all buried in every graveyard in the country.
Yes. I
like,
believe that.
I was like, holy bejesus, did you just hit the nail on the head? And then what really was really telling to me is I'm part of a group on, it's called 1in6.org, and it's called the Bristol Film Project, and it's a worldwide project for male survivors of sex abuse to come forward. And there's like 240 of us that have done this project, and we're on the website. And I was sitting there with the head of the organization, Dave Lezak, and he was doing my interview and taking my photos. And he looked at me, Peg and Jackie and Shawn. He looked me dead in the face, and I was just like, hey, look, I'm sorry about the upload and all.
Hey, Brian, we're losing you
You know?
again. We
He
were
looked at
losing
me and he
you
goes,
again.
don't apologize. It's like, because I have something to do. All right. And he said, don't apologize. Are we good now? We good?
We're good now.
So David looks at me and he goes, I've heard your story before, Brian. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. But the difference is every person that has told me your story, they're on death row right now. And
Wow.
that was powerful. And that was the push to be like, this needs to be said.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Interesting. That's amazing. I've actually been writing a memoir too. I don't advertise it because I'm not sure if that's what I'm not sure what the, Brian's been thinking, why are you not sharing your project? I have about 80 pages written. I may or may not publish. I'm undecided at this point, but I started it probably 15 years ago and had some support around this creative project recently. So I've been working on it, and it is hard to revisit, but it also has pushed me to look at the hardships I endured and realize, okay, I kept coming back. Maybe I had moments of pain, of feeling demoralized or violated, but I kept coming back like crabgrass. That's the kind of strong person I am. I keep coming back.
Yes.
It's the reason why I paint dandelions in all my paintings, a lot of my paintings, because every survivor is a dandelion. You cannot kill us. We will grow in concrete.
Yeah.
We are tenacious, and we are the bane of every person's existence in their yard. And if you really think about it, we are gorgeous to behold.
Yes, we are. Yes. If I could jump in there and I share with you, someone was saying 3 years is not a long time. That's just putting the clippings together, but kind of like what Peg was sharing, this thing has been running for quite some time. So I appreciate what you guys are saying, because I've been cutting hair for 20 years. And just the different people that I've been fortunate to meet. Some of them, like you say, Brian, are still on death row. One of my best friends, one of a good friend, just passed away in February, Mr. Sonny Francisi. If you Google him, he's a really, I miss him.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing I say about NAMI is that working here, I meet the best people in the world, the most amazing people with hearts of gold, and they have been through the ringer. And that includes, I think, all of my panelists. I'm really grateful to each of you for being here. I know you each have a story and you each have an exquisite voice in telling that story. So thank you for being part of this. We're not done yet. We still got a couple questions. One from the chat box was, what was the thing that drove you to work on your big project, whether it's writing or a different creative project?
Healing. it's something, it's almost like being an old bottle of wine that's turned into vinegar or whatever, and it's just, you need to pop that cork and let something out, else you're going to explode. And writing, even if it's just journaling, no one else will see it, even if you set it on fire at the end when you're done. It's something about purging that is healing
Mm.
and validating.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that reminds me of a tool from dialectical behavioral therapy called checking the facts. When you write something down, it pushes you to check the facts.
Holds you
Now,
accountable.
I'm sorry?
Holds you accountable.
It does, but also in a good way. Like maybe I'll think of a memory and I'll just cringe and think, God, I acted like such a loser. But when I write down what actually happened, I
Mm-hmm.
realize, okay, this happened, this is how I responded. I'm much easier on myself when I focus on the specifics. I see it more clearly and not through the eyes of that
Right.
that shame and that feeling.
Yeah.
Uh,
For me, I'm sorry, Shawn, go ahead.
Thank you, Brian. It's a short one. For me, I needed a new bucket list. I think I heard Jackie say doing that. Just healthiness. I try to play that in my mind each and every day I wake up. Instead of right, wrong, good, bad, healthiness. And so I needed that new bucket list. I knew what it was like if I went over to such and such's house. Even if I played it a different way, I really knew how I was going to wind up. I was going to spend my money. I was going to get drunk. So I knew these things that I had done over and over and over again, and I did them because I enjoyed doing them. I understood the expansion, or started to learn about the disease process, but I needed a new bucket list because I had so many other things that I hadn't tried that I thought I would be good at, it could open my eyes or a different way of life, and I was cheating myself. So I just needed a new bucket list, is why I had to start doing some different things.
I think for me, it was growing up in my household, I was and I apologize if this is offensive to anybody, but I was the household servant. I was
Yes.
I was beaten. I was really and again, I apologize. I was really the house slave. I was
Yes.
the one that was
Yes.
responsible for every single thing in the house, and I was 6. And so I became, through that upbringing, in a very malicious way, I realized I was a servant to man. And as I've gotten...
Oh my goodness. We're gonna have to talk to those tech people in New Bern because this is there's a lot of good information that's getting cut out of our show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody else realize their potential. And one of the first things I did was oh, this was such a beautiful moment. I hosted a sports camp for kids of abuse. And I got Antoine Scott, a former Harlem Globetrotter, to come down. I got the starting tight end for Wake Forest football team to come down. And I got the kids bicycles. We got them deli plates. We rented out a gym so they could play basketball and hang out with all these kids and all these people. And I just got everything set up, and the kids are in the basketball court screaming, having a blast, laughing, just having this amazing time. And I took 30 seconds and I looked at that and I realized
This is like watching one of those cliffhanger shows. Like you're just on the edge of your seat and you're like, no, don't stop now.
Brian, please repeat that whenever you get your audio back. Please repeat that.
which part.
What was the very last thing?
Where so these kids were going to have to go back to being adults again. And for 2 or 3 hours, I let them be kids, and I created this circle for them to play with a Harlem Globetrotter. I took this chance and spent this money that I had saved to help other people, and then honestly, it was all downhill from there. That was like, well, one big project to the next, because now I'm addicted to that feeling, and So that's, you know, like, that's why I paint the series that I paint. That's why I wrote the book. That's why I started Survivor Nights. That's why I go and talk at colleges. Just for 1 second, let somebody be who they are, not what somebody expects them to be.
Right.
Well said. Well said. All right, we've got a couple more questions and 15 more minutes. So I really appreciate all the questions. I appreciate people hanging in there. When you give advice to people that they asked for, but they don't listen to you, do you still give advice?
Ooh, that's a good one.
That is,
Wow. That's a kind of a multi-layered question there, because you have to, when you give someone advice and you give it from your heart and they don't listen, it makes you mad. And then you kind of turn away and you're like, well, I'm not going to deal with that person, but they're going to come back. So before you give more advice, you really have to assess the situation, because it could be one, the person just wasn't ready to hear you, or two, the person just really needs attention. And you have to make a decision if you want to give that person that attention, and you have to understand that you have to kind of keep a healthy distance when you're giving attention like that, or if that you're going to be thoughtful enough to remember people are people and be able to give it another go and hope that maybe this time they'll be a little more receptive.
Oh boy, that's deep, Jackie. I like that. I always like to find that down myself. I'm gonna take a page out of Pauline Caldwell's book. My mom shares with me, when you're doing what's right, Shawn, you can never be wrong. And once you say or share that thing, it's off of your chest. You just go ahead.
So I don't know. So what I do for advice is, all right, so I call, sorry if this offends anybody, I call the people that ask for advice and never follow it ask holes, because you start to get to the point where you're just like, I'm not going to give you advice anymore. But one of the things that helped me was, so someone came up to me that was one of these people, and I just stopped them before they started, and I said, are you coming to me because you need me to listen, or do you want my help with your problem? So I stopped them, and then they looked at me and they were like, I really just need you to listen. And so what dawned on me was I was giving people advice.
I know that's right. No.
Whatever, be like, are you asking me to solve this, or are you asking me to listen?
Right.
And you ask them point blank, and again, I'm not going to ask them to live up to my expectation of what they can achieve. That's on them. So I ask them, and if they want advice, I'll give them advice. If they want me just to shut up and listen and drink my water, I will drink my water through a double straw, and we will sit here for the day.
Yes. You know, and could I add one thing to that also? In giving advice, a lot of times when we give advice, because one thing I notice is when you listen to another person and they're talking, it kind of sends you back into your mind, and next thing you know, memories start coming up, or your scenario comes up, and then sometimes our answers come out of our experiences through that scenario. If we could learn how to put our scenarios to the side and really fully listen to the person, we can give an answer that is more fitting to that person, as opposed to, you know, maybe out of our trigger, out of our brokenness, or whatever else, whatever filter that we're using to listen through. Yes, Pip Pip. That's my son if you hear him in the background. Hey, you want to say hi? Did you want to say hi? No, he's reliving some lines, but he might say hi.
aw. So the question reminds me of a group of connection facilitators that I was talking to one time. And the question was, well, what do I do with the person who comes back every week with the same problem to my NAMI Connection Recovery Support Group? And one of the gals answered in such a beautiful way. She said, well, you know, if that person is talking about trauma or a situation that's difficult for them, which it was that, you know, maybe that's their way of slowly desensitizing themselves and slowly coming to terms with the issue is to tell the group about it. And that's all they need to do. And that's so true. Just sometimes speaking the words can make an unspeakable experience easier to live with. It helps us heal, and just saying it makes it more manageable. I'm roughly quoting Fred Rogers there.
That's so good.
Let's see.
Say hi.
We've got,
Can you see them
hello.
waving? There you go.
Hello. All right, so Jackie, question for you.
Yes.
As far as your virtual classes go, are they always virtual, or is it because of the coronavirus?
Well, it was born out of the coronavirus. You know, necessity is the mother of invention. So we're giving this a go, and it's not going to be the only thing. I look forward to doing much more. I think panels like this are awesome, and I don't know why we didn't think to do this years ago, but that's okay because we have embarked upon it now. So I'm hoping that I get a chance to see all of you again here and somewhere else virtually.
Same here, Jackie.
Thank you.
Yeah, me as well. It feels to me like we're wrapping up. If there are any last minute questions, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Can I just mention on Fridays on my Facebook page at 12 o'clock Eastern, I do a free learning to paint class or draw class. And so all you have to do is just show up, have some very basic stuff, and I will help people learn how to draw and paint during this time, just to help, to kill some of the time.
Would you be willing to, could we schedule something in the near future, if you don't mind?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Excellent.
All right. Well, hey, thank you all for joining Thursdays with NAMI. This is where beautiful connections are made. I really appreciate everyone being here. My panelists, Shawn Caldwell, Jackie Pilgrim, Brian Cardoza, thank you for sharing your stories and sharing your time with us. Really, I just have so much respect for each of you, and I really appreciate your being here.
Thanks for having
Thank you having us. Thank you so much for inviting us.
Can I just say real quick? Very few places are giving spaces for people to talk openly about mental health and about abuse. And so every time I do a podcast or something like this, I always like to thank the coordinators and everybody who did it, because very few people are giving us that space. And when they take a chance and give it to us, we help people. And so thank you, Peg. Thank you, NAMI. And I'm not kissing tail. That is just the honest truth. So thank you, guys.
All right. Well, that's awesome. 90 minutes has flown by, for me at least.
Yes, it has. My goodness.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
been
On the one
great.
hand, we've covered a lot of ground. On the other hand, it feels like we just started in a way. But we will be back a week from tonight at 7 o'clock. We're going to be talking about something you can do to take control in this difficult era, the COVID-19 era. We're talking about PADS, and those are psychiatric advance directives. One tool that you can use just in case there's a chance you might be hospitalized in the future for psychiatric reasons. A PAD, or a psychiatric advance directive, will allow you to spell out things that work for you, things that don't work for you, whether it's medication, visitors, who's going to take care of your pets, who's going to take care of my Roxy, all those details that can make a big difference in your wellness, in your recovery. So tune in next week for PADS. The following Thursday at 7, we're going to have a therapist, Marta Jackson, my therapist as it happens. She's very lovely, and she's going to talk about mindfulness and meditation. All right. So on that note, I'm going to say, please take care of yourself. Do whatever you need to do to be safe. Go wherever you need to go to be safe. And have a wonderful week. We will see you next time.
Good night, all.
Good night.